I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
Welcome back. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show this morning. Good morning to everybody out there listening. Thank you so much for being with us. Telephone number 870-275-9799. Got a lot to get to as normal. This morning, we'll be talking with Chris Hall at the bottom of the hour about the media, what exactly they're doing to the people. She's written an excellent article over at her site, chrisannhall.com. We kind of had to reschedule this from yesterday. Top of the next hour, 7:05, State Representative Josh Miller. You realize State Representative Josh Miller received from Conduit for Commerce at their Calvin Coolidge Awards. We went there. I mean, it was so much fun on Friday, almost a week ago now. What is it? Is today Thursday? That's trash day at my house. I forgot to take out the trash. I hang my head in shame. State Representative Josh Miller received a 2019 Conduit for Commerce Calvin Coolidge Arkansas Hero Award. He received another one because he's received an award like this every year he's served. And he also got a 2019 Conduit for Commerce Calvin Coolidge Freedom Bill Award. He won that because of his Medicaid. It's funny to say this. This is just kind of how it goes. His Medicaid expansion bill, which would have taken this insurance company giveaway that we've been participating in, where we pay money whether or not somebody goes to the doctor or not to insurance companies. It would have changed it to a fee-for-service, saving the state millions and millions and millions of dollars. Of course, the bill failed, but his idea is genuine and is also gaining traction behind the scenes because at this point, the way we're doing Medicaid expansion in Arkansas is not really something you can defend when you look at the cost of it. Even if the work requirements are reinstated, which they likely will be. You know, that same judge did the same thing to this week. Did the same thing throughout work requirements for the same one that did for Arkansas, Kentucky. It's up there in the Northeast. I can't remember. It escapes me. Josh Miller also received an award, which is extremely prestigious, the Linda Collins Legislator of the Year Award for Promises Kept. And so, anyway, we're going to be talking to him about that and much, much more, I'm sure, coming up at 7:05. So, really excited to talk to him. All right, so what do we have? The debates? Is that what we have? Oh, one other thing. Now, this is very interesting to me. So we covered this briefly when it was announced. Donald Trump has nominated a new judge for the Eastern District of Arkansas. He's the ex-Solicitor General, I believe also an ex-counsel for Walmart. Rudolphski is his last name. Lee Philip Rudolphski. Now, there's no L there, so it's just Rudolphski. So yesterday, in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee. So you got to think of what we're talking about here. We're talking about the National, in D.C., the National Senate Judiciary Committee. You're going before the chairman, Senator Lindsey Graham. But you're also going through Dianne Feinstein, as well as is her name Mazie Hirono? Hirono, Senator Hirono. And Senator Hirono doesn't like, they're not going to like anything Donald Trump does, so they don't like this guy. So Lee Philip Rudolsky is, I'm surprised we didn't have some allegation from the Democrats up there like, hey, are you a Russian? Because we're having trouble pronouncing your. I mean, Lindsey Graham had trouble. Anyway, so so this guy, Lee Rudolsky, signed on to some anti or pro-gay marriage, trying to get Proposition 8 over in California overturned back, during his legal career. And he said yesterday at these hearings, as he was questioned by Lindsey Graham, that if he had to do it over again, he wouldn't, because their Fourth Amendment arguments that eventually the Supreme Court sided with, saying that the right to marry is enshrined in the Constitution when it's not. The 14th Amendment arguments, he said, he researched them, and they're not actually legally sound. And he said this before the committee. So he said, if I had to do it over again, I would not have signed on to these pro-amicus briefs, these pro-gay marriage amicus briefs. I wouldn't do it. Anyway, we'll talk about that as well, because it's fascinating. I have the audio, pulled it up on C-SPAN. He was introduced by Senator Bozeman, then Senator Cotton, as Donald Trump's nominee for the Eastern District of Arkansas. And so we'll wait and see. Anyway, it's pretty interesting. So Mazie Hirono, she was like, are you serious? You come before this committee? You're really going to tell Senator Graham that you wish you hadn't signed these pro-gay marriage briefs? He's like, well, if I had to do it over again, I wouldn't do it, because your arguments. I don't believe essentially that under the 14th Amendment, there's the right to marriage in the Constitution. The liberals are going to have a cow over that. Anyway. So we'll talk about that. Let's start with the debates, though. Joe Biden apparently had a terrible performance. A lot of people say that Tulsi Gabbard from Hawaii, she won again. Now, does she still have the silver streak in her hair? Mm-hmm. So let me just read some of this stuff for you. Let's see. 10 more Democrats debate yesterday. By the way, the CNN numbers from the one before are just abysmal. Nobody watched that thing. Tulsi Gabbard, Andrew Yang apparently had a good closing argument. They went before the media sages, the holy media priests of Dana Bash, Jake Tapper, and Don Lemon. So they can absolve you of your sins. They can condemn you based on a inconsistent wheel of moralities, whatever they spin that day. Van Jones, with some high praise for Elizabeth Warren, quote, takeaway from tonight, you can point to some fighters, you can point to some problem solvers, and you can point to some visionaries. The only person who is all three is Elizabeth Warren. Oh, really? I don't know about that one, guys. Come on. Elizabeth Warren, really? Oh, well, I think I'll, thank you for being here, husband. Well, I think I'll have a beer. What do you think? You want to have a beer? Let me have a beer real quick. I mean, is this how you drink it? Is this it? Well, man, she's really down to earth, that Elizabeth Warren. Let's see here. Skipping down. Can we get to the part about Joe Biden where somebody on CNN said, at the very end of this whole thing, they went through their closing statements, and Joe Biden really messed this up because everybody else gave their website, and Joe Biden just blathered on, and it didn't even make any sense at all. Here it is from Bloomberg, the Bloomberg TikTok. Most candidates mentioned their websites during their closing statements, but Joe Biden said this. Listen to this.
If you agree with me, go to Joe 30330 and help me in this fight. Thank you very much.
What? Oh my goodness. If you agree with me, go to Joe 30030. Is that what he said? Uh-uh. Oh, okay. Okay, so you're supposed to text, not go to. So he was supposed, if you agree with me, text. Oh, no. You see, I was waiting for a .com. I was like, I think you left out the .com or .org or.
No, he plugged the wrong thing.
I'm telling you what, guys. I know that. I know people want it to be Joe Biden. Some reports about the debate last night suggest that Tulsi Gabbard, who's pretty popular and she served the country in the military, and she seems, she's not moderate, but she kind of seems more moderate. They were saying that Tulsi was trying to defend Joe Biden by attacking Kamala extract, and Kamala extract, she just would ignore Tulsi. Because what wouldn't you? She's kind of insignificant, and just went right back to hammering Biden last night. So, when is Joe Biden going to just be done? These debate performances for him are terrible. And President Trump will absolutely destroy Joe Biden in a debate. He will. And, one of the reasons that Donald Trump did such a great job in the debates against Hillary is because he refused to dance to the beat that the media was the moderators, the news priest. He refused to respect their power and authority, and just would just lay into Hillary or whoever else. Scroll down, Joe. Do we have more on this? Because this was earlier in the night where we actually have some sound bites. Here is Tulsi Gabbard. People in Flint, Michigan are still being left behind. Go ahead and listen to this because, anyway. She does still have the streak.
Donald Trump won this election because far too many people in this country felt like they've been left behind by both political parties, by self-serving politicians on both sides who are more interested in partisan politics than they are in actually fighting for the people. I'm speaking the truth to people all across this country about the fact that people in Flint, Michigan are still being left behind, still being poisoned by the water in their system. Because every single month we are spending $4 billion on a continuing war in Afghanistan. $4 billion every single month. Rather than ending that war, bringing our troops home and using those precious resources into serving the needs of the people here in this country. People and communities like Flint. That's the kind of leadership that I'll bring.
Yeah. Okay, keep going. Scroll down a little bit more. What else do we have? Let's go to, some of these questions. Here's Andrew Yang on the gender pay gap. This is what everybody, this will win the Democrats the election right here.
In order to give women a leg up, what we have to do is we have to think about women in every situation, including the ones who are in exploitative and abusive jobs and relationships around the country. I'm talking about the waitress who's getting harassed by her boss at the diner, who might have a business idea, but right now is stuck where she is. What we have to do is we have to give women the economic freedom to be able to improve their own situations and start businesses. And the best way to do this is by putting a dividend of $1,000 a month into their hands. It would be a game changer for women around the country because we know that women do more of the unrecognized and uncompensated work in our society. It will not change unless we change it. And I say that's just what we do.
Yeah, and they're getting sexually harassed. Apparently, it's like the rape culture on college campuses. There's just sexual harassment or rapists, those fry cooks in the diners that you're working at. Yeah, apparently it's really, really bad. My goodness. Boy, if you ever doubted that the Democrats are just obsessed with identifying the victim in every situation and identifying the oppressor and then blathering about how they'll fix it for political power. If you'll just give me political power, I'll fix it. There's your, basically it's like a textbook equation for these people. And it's, I don't even think they can help it anymore. It's just how they see the world. I saw a little girl on Twitter. I don't know how old she was. She was probably 10, 11, 12, maybe 13 years old. And she was being interviewed by the BBC. She was asked about climate change, and she broke down in tears and lost her mind right there on live national television. It's going all around the globe because she was so convinced that at any moment the climate would be like basically that she would die, that her life is literally in danger. I'm talking about like, you know, it might as well have been, you know, that movie Deep Impact or Armageddon, you know, with the asteroid coming, that her life is literally in danger right now, that just bringing it up brought forth all of this emotion because this girl has been lied to, has been manipulated to the point where she is walking around in one of the greatest countries on the planet, you know, as far as security goes and everything like that. I think it was in Britain. She's walking around terrified because she's bought, well, we gotta have socialism in order to fix, you know, climate change. She's believing her leaders that if we do X, we can control the weather across the globe. Think about that. There's serious, I mean, it's a serious brainwashing problem. It's crazy. Telephone number is 870-275-9799. Yeah, I mean, it's really, when you think about it, the debates are just, they're boring. It kind of makes you want to pull your hair out. Hey, when we come back, I do want to talk real quick about this article. There's now these new Andrew McCabe texts from the Justice Department that show that Andrew McCabe was in communication, speaking of Great Britain, with his MI5 counterpart over across the pond. And now I think we know why Great Britain was so worried about Donald Trump declassifying FISA and Russiagate and everything else. Because while, you know, Russia may have attempted to, you know, put some trolls on the internet to, you know, mess with our election, or what, I mean, they definitely did that. It looks like the origin of Russiagate was started by Great Britain, potentially. Imagine that. That's an international crisis. We'll tell you more about that when we come back. Jonesboro City Council, Jonesboro City Councilman Bobby Long, or Alderman as they're called, he had an interesting Facebook post where he linked to the Arkansas Center for Research and Economics a screenshot of special elections and the disparity. Can we show that real quick? This is the disparity between special elections. You've seen it before. Low voter turnout, which essentially means if you've got voter turnout in a special election of only 19%, you then have a 76% chance of passing your tax increase. If you've got voter turnout in a primary of 24% of the people, you have a 61% chance of passing your tax increase. But if you hold that in a general election, you have 44% voter turnout and a 46% chance of passing the tax increase, which is why Jonesboro's now passed or called for a special election September the 10th to pass a sales tax, a 1-cent sales tax. Alderman Bobby Long writing, I had an interesting conversation with a lady who worked with a legislative audit for 30 years. I asked if she could give me an example of a municipality that ran an event center or park, such as aquatic centers or water parks, that broke even or made money. She said no. She stated that user fees would be such that the normal citizen couldn't afford it, so the city has to take the loss to keep it affordable. The Tax Foundation ran an article on July 10th, 2019, which states 5 states with the highest average combined state and local sales tax are Tennessee and Arkansas, Louisiana, Washington, and Alabama. The 5 states with the lowest average combined rates are Alaska, Hawaii, Wyoming, Wisconsin, and Maine. It goes on to say state and local governments should be cautious about raising rates too high relative to their neighbors, because doing so would yield less revenue than expected. Okay, something to think about. Hang on a second, because I got to keep going down. Now, it talks about Jonesboro, and then he goes down and he says, he asks some questions. If this tax increase is passed, what would the new rate have to be in order to maintain and continue funding not only one, but possibly over 10 new facilities, because that's what's being talked about, past the 12 years the tax is supposed to be, levied on the people? Remember, this tax does absolutely nothing to address the reserve spending the city has had to engage in over the past few years. Yet, if this passes, this could be one of the most aggressive expansions of city-owned and operated facilities in recent history. Just a side note, I saw where an additional $6 million in mosquito control will be pushed. Will this be continued as well? Or are we hoping to eradicate the mosquito population so we won't have to issue, or we won't have an issue in 12 years? I had to ask. Do the cost estimates include land? Do the cost estimates include hiring, training, and benefits of new city employees, not just now, but past 12 years? What would be the anticipated user fees for each proposed facility? And would those fees be such that the average person could afford them? Remember, the higher the fees, the less cost to the city, but the fewer people can afford to pay them. The lower the...
Need your daily news fix? Don't forget to tune in to Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. We have this headline here: Secret McCabe texts with MI5 counterpart emerge, spotlighting the UK's early role in Russiagate. From Zero Hedge, newly surfaced text messages between former FBI Director Andrew McCabe and his counterpart at MI5, the UK's domestic security service, have cast new light on Britain's role in the FBI's 2016 Russiagate investigation. This is via The Guardian. Two of the most senior intelligence officials in the U.S. and UK privately shared concerns about, quote, our strange situation, end quote, as the FBI launched its 2016 investigation into whether Donald Trump's campaign was colluding with Russia. Text messages between Andrew McCabe, the deputy director of the FBI at the time, and Jeremy Fleming, his then counterpart at MI5, now the head of the GCHQ, also reveal their mutual surprise at the result of the EU referendum, which some U.S. officials regarded as a wake-up call, according to a person familiar with the matter. All right, so they were upset with Brexit. A lot of people thought after Brexit, they were like, wow, maybe Donald Trump is going to win this thing. McCabe and Fleming's texts were infrequent and cryptic, but occurred with some regularity after the June 2016 Brexit referendum. Quote, in his text message about August 2016 meeting, Fleming appeared to be making a reference to Peter Strzok, a senior FBI official who traveled to London that month to meet the Australian diplomat Alexander Downer. Downer had agreed to speak with the FBI about a Trump campaign advisor, George Papadopoulos, who had told him that Russia had dirt on Hillary Clinton, the Democratic nominee. In 2017, The Guardian reported that Britain's spy agencies had played a key role in alerting their American counterparts of communications between members of the Trump campaign and suspected Russian agents, which was passed along to the U.S. in what was characterized as a routine exchange of information. The UK begged Trump not to declassify. In May, President Trump issued a sweeping declassification order on materials related to the DOJ FBI Russia investigation, leaving it in the hands of Attorney General William Barr to determine exactly what happened to Trump and his campaign before the 2016 election. For over a year, people have asked me to declassify. What I've done is declassify everything, Trump said. It's the greatest hoax. Meanwhile, also in May, Fox News reported that the discredited Steele dossier, assembled by former MI6 spy Christopher Steele, was referred to as Crown material in an email exchange suggesting that former FBI Director James Comey insisted that CIA Director John Brennan pushed for the inclusion of the dossier in the intelligence community assessment on Russian interference. Moreover, much of the Operation Crossfire Hurricane, the FBI's official investigation into Trump, occurred on UK soil, which is perhaps why the New York Times reported last September that the UK begged Trump not to declassify Russiagate documents without redaction. Let's also not forget that shortly after Trump campaign aide George Papadopoulos announced his intention to work for the campaign, he was lured to London in March 2016, where a Maltese professor and self-described Clinton Foundation member Joseph Mifsud fed him the rumor that Russia had damaging information on Hillary Clinton. It was later that at a bar that Papadopoulos passed the rumor to the Australian diplomat Alexander Downer, We wonder what else is in the text between McCabe and MI5. Fees, the more cost to the city, but more citizens can afford to pay them. What is the additional cost to the city for each event center or park, and where will that money come from? Utilities, staffing, insurance, upkeep, maintenance. If we can anticipate a loss on each such project, how many current city departments will have to see reductions in budgets in order to compensate for the overall loss on possibly greater than 10 new facilities? Why were we not afforded this list with the numbers weeks ago when I asked for them prior to the vote to be put on the ballot? I was told that Team Jonesboro had the numbers, but would not disclose them for fear that by releasing the numbers, it would influence the impartial integrity committee, and then that would become the list, and we don't want that. And we have audio of that. This Facebook post was so thoughtful and asks basic questions that just, if you have any guardianship of the taxpayer dollar, like if you're just trying to make sure and watch out for the taxpayer, and that means everybody who pays sales tax, that's a very thoughtful post, and I don't think any of those questions have been asked. Here now to talk more about this, we do have the coordinator from the Northeast Arkansas Tea Party, Iris Stevens. Iris.
Hey.
What do you think about this?
I think Bobby Long has asked great questions during this whole process, from the first meeting where this was discussed, not the presentation, but the first city council meeting, the first reading. I've thought, why hasn't this been, why wasn't this in their proposal, to look specifically at this? Because he's right. We don't know the answers to any of these. It's just as if, well, we want this. Let's just go out and buy it and have the city pay for it.
Right.
I thought that was a good way to put it. There's no guardianship, or there does not look to be any guardianship of the taxpayer dollar, because you're going to ask, the elderly, the retired, the on fixed income, low income, they're all going to be paying this tax, and every dollar adds up. I think a lot of people who may be a little bit better off financially don't think about that when they do this. They go, well, it's a great project, it's only an extra penny.
Yeah.
Well, that penny adds up, and we see that in the way taxes affect areas.
What do you think about the list now? Because last time I talked to you, there wasn't a list with dollar figures attached to each one of these items, like Children's Museum, bike trails, aquatic center.
I thought it was amazing. I looked at that, and I'm sorry, my first reaction is, they can't possibly think that we believe they're going to be able to do all of this. It's just not going to work, and I'm far more concerned about
Okay, folks, welcome back to the program. Good morning. Thank you so much for being with us. Again, telephone number if you want to call us or text us today, 870-275-9799. I want to welcome back to the program. We have talk radio host, constitutional attorney, teacher extraordinaire, Chris Ann Hall's back with us. Chris Ann, how are you?
I am fantastic. How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic as well. I've been following some of your articles, reading some of your articles, one on Brexit, but also one on the media, and I really think this is pretty fantastic. Where you write this: America's media and politicians have become nothing but a source of sickening and toxic blither, whose only purpose is to divide Americans through contrived and artificial standards. They work to keep us hating each other so we cannot see the real enemy, nor can we join together in liberty and be truly free. We are enslaving ourselves at their command, and we do not even realize it. I couldn't agree more, and I know there's people out there listening that are just nodding their heads. I mean, that really sums it up, Chris Ann.
Yeah, I think that we as an Americans are beginning to wake up to this reality. I mentioned yesterday on the radio show, I was actually in in the pizza place, getting ready to, waiting to pick up some pizza, and Fox News was on the television, and there was a man in there who just, sometimes people just randomly speak to me. Maybe I have that kind of face, I don't know. And he said, you know what? He said, I am a proud black 65-year-old man. And he said, and I tell you what, I am sick and tired of this mess. He didn't know me from Adam's house cat. And he just went on this rant about how he's sick about the media's lies. He's sick about the politicians. He's sick about the way they work together to make us hate each other. He said, he says, real life is this. I live in a neighborhood. I'm in Tampa, Florida. So he says, my neighborhood is, I have a black neighbor, I have a white neighbor, I have a Hispanic neighbor. He said, if we need things, we help each other. He says, that's who America is, not who they want us to be. He says, they just try to make us hate each other so they can have power and money. And you have to know, Paul, I was like, woo, right there in the pizza joint, amen in the guy. And I think the illusion is peeling away from the eyes of the everyday American.
I do. I hope that's the case. I mean, I definitely know people are frustrated. I think they are getting the sense that in a way they're being manipulated. I mean, that's really what's going on here. There's a blockade of truth out there. And, when it comes to ideas like liberty, I do think there are still most people out there, it's a very American idea to think of, like, well, hey, I'm an American. I have a right to be, to be left alone, and like I have a right to privacy and these. I feel like that's still like a thing. And
yeah.
But when you talk about the Constitution and go around teaching these things, I'm sure you get questions from the audience where people are kind of almost, I don't know, maybe sometimes they're not getting it. Maybe they bring something up that they just heard, on the media or on a website, for clicks.
Well, there is a lot of error in the minds of Americans because, to be honest, we have failed to teach the Constitution properly since 1833. And so most of what we understand about the Constitution from what we've learned in school, now I'm not talking about the people who've made the effort, to read the founders themselves or to read and understand what's not in the textbook. But for most Americans whose understanding of American government, American history, American Constitution simply comes from what they heard in school is really based on error. And it's something that's really hard for a lot of people to understand because we place such trust in our education system. And when you talk about things like this, there's instantly some kind of a defense mechanism that kicks in and says, well, you hate teachers. And that's simply not true because I love our teachers and I know our teachers. I work with our teachers. I believe that the overwhelming majority of American teachers do what they do because they love children, because they love learning, because they want us to be a better place. But a teacher is only as equipped as their tools. And our tools have been designed to teach Americans errors so that we don't know, like I said in the article, who the real enemy is. And we have been taught that government is to have more power than it's supposed to have, that it's better for us to have government with power than for the people to self-govern. We have been taught so many lies that you're right. Even in my conservative circles that I teach, because I teach everybody, I mean the broad spectrum. I have liberal audiences, conservative audiences, because I teach the Constitution and people want to know. But even in those who believe themselves to be conservatives, who would even identify themselves as constitutionalists, Paul, believe that government is supposed to have power that they simply don't have. And that the error is only compounded by further misunderstandings and misteachings, by the important details of the power of the president, by the the qualifications of the president, by the authority of Congress. And my goodness, if I had one pet peeve, that would be the idea that is just rampant in the American head, that simply because the courts say it's so, it must be so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that one right there is something that, well, I mean, you know, if you attempt to combat that notion, then you're going to get, you know, well, jurisprudence, or, you know,
yeah.
you're going to get that answer, and that's one. I mean, that's like, it's almost like that is sacred, you know. We've got to leave it up to 9 people in black robes.
Well, and it's trickled down to any court and any judge, and it's just, if I could do one thing, that would be to wake up the American people to the absolute slavish mentality that error breeds in the hearts, the minds, and even the souls of Americans. And when you try to bring out the ludicrous nature of that kind of ideology, it's something that just simply doesn't connect. And for me, it's very simple. Number one, it's like you said, we don't live in an oligarchy of 9 kings and queens in black robes. Simply doesn't work. But you have to know, and you must admit, that given that kind of power, these people have made grave, and I mean tragic errors. It was the Supreme Court that identified black men as property, not the Constitution. And what's even worse, they didn't come out and say, we, the Supreme Court, believe that black men are property. They did something more insidious and more vile. They said, we know that the Constitution establishes that black men are property. And that's why so many Americans believe that the Constitution is a racist document, because it was the Supreme Court that was racist, not the Constitution. We have a Supreme Court that declared the Constitution establishes that men, women, and children can be locked up in internment camps for 4 years without due process. These are Americans. And the Supreme Court said Americans can be locked in internment camps without due process simply based on national security needs, and they used the Constitution as an excuse for that. And these are the very, very, very dangerous things that we allow the Supreme Court to declare, and yet in the same breath, even though they have these errors, they're infallible and unquestionable.
Mm-hmm. That's actually a really good point. They actually have, on the big issues, they don't have a very good track record, and yet no one wants to bring that up. Yeah, that's really, really good. We're talking with Chris Ann Hall. She's a constitutional attorney, host of the Chris Ann Hall Show. She's got this great website called Liberty First University, where you can go and take classes and really get educated. Again, I've seen her teach in person. I've never seen somebody as gifted as she is, and the passion that she has for, you know, the truth really, really comes out, especially when she goes over the quotes of the founders. I do want to say this. I love how you meshed in this paragraph here in the middle of this article I was just referencing. I love this article, this paragraph, and what you do, bringing up Jesus Christ in it. You write, these abusers, talking about the media and politicians, these abusers are causing us to enslave ourselves through their messages of hate, division, fear, and partisan isolation. However, my fear is that we may be close to believing the lies of our abusers, and that we are drifting further and further from one thing that is our true love and salvation, the love of Christ that sets us free and gives us the power and ability to love our neighbor as ourselves. When the heart is full of vitriol, then the spirit cannot be free. Our enemy is not each other. Our enemy are those who teach and encourage us to hate each other. And the reason I love that paragraph, Chris Ann, is because you are saying that loving your neighbor as yourself is a supernatural act, is what I'm getting from that.
Oh, well, you know, I mean, it's not a natural tendency for us. I mean, we are born out of depravity, and that's just simply the truth. You can't look at any society and think that comes naturally. And when people like the media and politicians abuse the power and the responsibility that they have by turning us on each other, that's really, really the wickedness in society. When our command, and even if you're not a believer in Christ, you must admit that the golden rule is how we ought to live. And if that were natural, it wouldn't be so easy for them to turn us against each other. So I believe that through Christ, we have that supernatural ability to overcome the delusion of hate and division, because it is absolutely a delusion and an illusion. We are one. There are not multiple races in America. There is one race. We all have the same colored blood. We all have the same spirit within us. And we as Americans need to come together with that unity. Thomas Paine said it is not in numbers that we gather our strength, but in unity. And we went on to explain that unity is the liberty that we find in Christ.
That's incredible, and I couldn't agree more. And to your point, I remember, and I'm sure you do too, when you had the racist that went into the black church in South Carolina, and he killed a bunch of the parishioners there. And then, then they had, he had a rebel flag in the background of one of his posts, or a Confederate battle flag. And so then, the media gets whipped up into a frenzy. Can you believe what's happened and everything else? Cut to the arraignment, and at the same time the arraignment is happening, a bunch of people in the South Carolina town, they gather. MSNBC's covering it specifically, and they start to sing hymns. And I'm talking everybody, white, black, everybody's outside. And then the same time the arraignment's going on, the news starts to report that the members of this church are forgiving this man who just killed their friends, and urging him to turn to Christ for forgiveness, saying, "Hey, it's not too late for you. We know you did this thing. It's caused us this great pain, but we want you to know we forgive you because Christ has forgiven us." Such a moment of reconciliation. The MSNBC reporter on the street, as he's hearing the songs and the hymns, loses it, gets choked up, starts to cry. This lasted about 12 to 24 hours before they turned the cameras to the Capitol, South Carolina, and said, they're still flying a Confederate battle flag.
Yeah.
And immediately changed the narrative, because reconciliation, I don't know if it doesn't sell, I guess. But I mean, it was anyway. Did you remember that moment? Because to me, that was like, wow, the media is just terrible.
Well, like I said in the article, they've become a tool of division and derision. There's no other means by which they know how to make money. And there's a media truth that has lasted forever. If it bleeds, it leads, because their moneymaker is disaster. Their moneymaker is grief. Their moneymaker is hate and division. And instead of actually teaching the good stuff out there, they'll actually spin it to be bad. And every media does that because, well, I think for one reason they want to be clever. Everybody wants to have their own scoop. So they want to take what should be ordinary and turn it into super ordinary so that they can have some kind of breaking story, and everybody will watch them and nobody will watch anybody else. But it really is simply a tale of greed. It is a tale of avarice, and it's a tale of the desire for power and money. And that's who the media has become. And what's even worse is that you have in America many, many options. But the media is also very good, and the politicians are even better at this. And so and unfortunately, so are the professors and the educated elite. It's scaring people away from learning and discerning truth on their own, so that they can be the holders of the only truth. It really is George Orwell's 1984, because he who holds the information is the holder of the perceived truth. And what people perceive to be true is how they operate their lives and act that to be true. But people always, there's the idiom that if you repeat a lie long enough, people will begin to believe it to be true. And a lie will never become true. No matter how often you repeat it, no matter how much you believe it, it will still always be a lie. But if you live your life as if that lie were true, then your entire life is built on lies. And I'm afraid, and that's the kind of point I was trying to make, I'm afraid that the foundation of American truth is beginning to be supported only by lies, and that will crumble and tumble soon.
Yeah, I agree with you. That certainly is it's a well thought out fear. And Chris Hall, I really appreciate you coming on the program, and you've got this great website again, chrisanhall.com, Liberty First University, and you're going to be back in Arkansas in October. I know you're going to be in Jonesboro October 12th, and so really appreciate everything that you're doing. Keep teaching the folks the truth. And I know you're changing hearts and minds, like, one event at a time. And I know when people hear the truth, they are like, "What? I had no idea." And it's always anyway. It's always great to talk to you, and wish you the best.
Thank you, sir. Anytime. I love being on your show. You're great people.
All righty, thank you, Chris Hall, everybody. We're gonna make a YouTube video of this interview. It'll be up at conduitnews.com, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Conduit News. Click the little bell to receive notifications. And man, I'm telling you, that article really stuck out to me. And by the way, she ended it with a quote from Patrick Henry. What is it that gentlemen wish? What would they have? Is life so dear or peace so sweet as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery? Forbid it, Almighty God. I know not what course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty or give me death. Folks, we'll be back in just a moment.
The cost down the road than just the initial cost that they've mentioned, which, as Bobby said, we're not told, does this include land? Does it include all of the things that you mentioned? Or is this just the aquatic center itself, or just the pool itself, or whatever? But then down the road, we're going to be stuck with this. And I don't say stuck because, goodness knows, some of these projects I think look fine if they're paid for correctly. We haven't been told whether or not they've got any corporate sponsorship yet. Now, that was mentioned, but we haven't been told whether they do or not. Are some of the movers and shakers in this area, are they actually going to kick in 10 or 15 or $20 million for any of these projects? We need to know that before they come to us with their hats out, wanting our money. Yeah. This is for just the projects over $100 million, because half of that goes, the other half would go to the police and fire.
Right.
But over $100 million they're wanting, and it's still a very empty proposal. No matter what kind of PR that they're doing with all their little meetings and rallies and their rollout and rally, which I thought was great. And I don't know who their PR person is, but he deserves whatever they're paying for him.
That's great. That's great. No, I heard it was a success, based on that criteria for sure. Well, okay, so, I'm just thinking, I know they need the tax, right? Let's talk about the fact that the city actually needs this way more than maybe they're letting on, because we've been getting into our surplus. Or Jonesboro has been
$6.5 million they pulled down.
Okay.
And in one point, of course, you don't always get an accurate story, through the paper or whatever. But one person had said that was only half of the possible deficit, which is a scary thought if 6.58 million is only half. And of course, I don't know, because you can't guarantee that what they said was accurate.
Yeah.
Because I haven't talked to that person.
Well, so I guess what I would say is if it's 6.5 million, let's just say it is 6.5 million, I have to say, okay, well, all of the things that are being promised to all of these different groups, you're going to get a renovation of this facility, you're going to get a new facility, you're going to get this. Before any of that happens, we know that 6.5 million, because they're not going to cut anything, right? No. So this tax increase is going to go to plug that hole first.
That was a question that was asked by one of the first questioners at one of the first meetings where we could ask questions, and he was shut down almost immediately because basically his question was, are you going to take this money and plug some of these holes? How much of this money is going to go there rather than projects? And see, that hasn't been discussed at all, because theoretically, according to what they're saying, all of this money will go toward their projects. But that's not possible if you're already running that kind of a deficit in the city.
Yeah, or let's say they've already got money in their general budget allocated for this project.
Yes.
Well, now the new tax dollar goes to fund that, and then the old money then gets. It's a shell game. You were here 10 years ago when they did this. I was here 10 years ago. I remember they had police officers and firemen on the corners of the big.
Exposing the truth and everything the Marble Palace establishment keep trying to cover up. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, so coming up, we got State Representative Josh Miller coming your way at 7:05. We're going to talk about his recipient of the Linda Collins Legislator of the Year Promises Kept Award at the Conduit for Commerce Calvin Coolidge Awards that happened on Friday. It was a really, really great event. Also coming your way, we want to talk about this ex-Solicitor General, Rudowski, who was testifying before the Senate Judiciary Committee to become the next judge for the Eastern District of Arkansas. Was nominated by President Trump and U.S. District Court. So there was a little dust-up because Senator Graham brought up the fact that Rudowski supported some amicus briefs. I hear people say amicus and amicus. I don't know. I don't know. I've been doing this 10 years. I still don't know. I'm not a lawyer. Wouldn't it be cool if you said amicus, we knew that you were a conservative-minded justice, but if you said amicus, we knew that you were a liberal? And wouldn't it be funny if different law schools taught different things, kind of like seminaries? And that's how you could figure out. I believe in inalienable rights. Uh-oh. He said inalienable, not unalienable. So he's in that camp. Wouldn't that be nice? Anyway, he signed on to some amicus briefs that were pro-gay marriage, using the argument of the 14th Amendment, equal protection, and he said in the hearing yesterday, I don't think so. I made a mistake. I didn't know about the 14th Amendment in terms of he said I researched it more. I've got better legal arguments. And he said I would not sign on to those if I had to do it all over again, which this made Senator Hirono, the Democrat, made her mad. Anyway, we'll get to that. We'll give you the audio of that coming up next hour, so you don't want to miss that. That's pretty interesting stuff. As far as the Democrat debates go last night, here's a few of your headlines. Alarm, Biden repeatedly stumbles over words and stats. Is he running for president of space? Axelrod, David Axelrod, who was the Mr. Belvedere of the Obama administration. This may be the best he can do. Protesters interrupt the debate. Early tech and mic problems. Really? Again? Kamala Extract Harris calls Joe senator after he addressed her as kid. That's pretty funny. Gabbard versus Harris. You kept prisoners locked up for labor. Booker torches Biden. You destroyed communities like mine. And then filmmaker Michael Fatmore, to crush Trump, Michelle Obama needs to run. Well, that's why Obama's probably not. Why Obama's probably not endorsed anybody yet, because Michelle might get in. So then we have this headline here. Scarborough blasts 2020 Democrats for attacking Obama's policies more than Trump's. Now, why would they attack Obama's policies last night? Well, because they're attacking Joe Biden. So, quote, these candidates are attacking Barack Obama's policy positions more than Donald Trump's. The comments from Scarborough, a frequent Trump critic, came as a bunch of Democrat presidential candidates targeted policies that former Vice President Joe Biden helped oversee during the Obama administration. Folks, that's hour one. We have hour two coming your way next. State Representative Josh Miller coming up next. It's always great to talk to him. Back in a moment.
The news and talk of Northeast Arkansas. This is News Talk 101.3 FM and 12:30 AM KBTM, Jonesboro, an EAB radio station.
These streets holding up signs saying, save our jobs or whatever they said, vote for the tax, not save our jobs, but that they were using the police
well, I think
and fire.
Some of them were told that, if we don't get the money.
But that was never true. They had the money. They just wanted anyway.
And that's why there is the amount of skepticism toward this project that there is because so many times we have not felt like we've been actually told the truth and that we've had everything exposed. Talk about transparency. Scott McDaniel has said repeatedly, this is a transparent process. But I'm sorry, this is not. When we don't know the details, this is not transparent. Mm-hmm. And this is a tax that I think for all intents and purposes will be permanent. Yeah. It'll be a permanent tax because they'll have to have that money. And as I spoke to a Team Jonesboro member here a week or so ago, he said, well, if it's not successful, when we come to, re-up the tax or whatever, he said that they won't vote for it. And I looked at him and I said, I said, I totally disagree. How can you not? Are we going to let the aquatic center go down, the pools go down, the museum go down? I said, and that's what they will do. They will tell us, well, So I said, it doesn't make any difference whether these projects are successful or not.
Also, not to mention, again, I was here 10 years ago. Matter of fact, as soon as I started my career in radio, this was a little mini battle, and it passed. That they passed their tax increase. Nobody remembers, unless you do this for a living or an activist like you are. Nobody remembers what they were saying 10 years ago.
No, they don't. Very few people. It's like very few people remembered. Even Scott McDaniel didn't remember that we had traded our sanitation fees for the increase in that tax in the year 2000. I remembered it because I thought, if we might actually get something for it. And then they get up, Team Jonesboro, and says, well, we don't have sanitation fees. Well, yes, we do. We rolled them into that tax that we paid that we're still paying. And, of course, the city government, we've got members of the city government who would like to reinstate a sanitation fee and things like that because I've got the documentation from the city council meetings where they talk, well, we would have X number of dollars if we went ahead and put this in again. Well, then we're paying double, aren't we? Because one of the reasons they passed the tax was so that we could eliminate the sanitation fee. So if then they impose a sanitation fee, then we're paying double on it. And that's why I tried to let them know, no, we already have a sanitation fee. It was rolled into that tax increase.
Okay, so out of these projects, which one, if you had to pick one, which one would you
I'd say the pools. We only have one pool in this city, and when my kids were growing up, we had two. And I can see that, and I could even see making it to where you could have competitions at it. I can even see that because that would benefit the kids, the schools and things like that. But another question even about that, why are the schools not getting together and using some of their money to put in pools that would benefit all of the ones in the area? Even the ones who don't have swimming could institute a swimming program for that. Right. So there are always alternate ways of funding anything that you see. An aquatic center might be fun, but I think Paragould needs to be called and see how that's working out for them.
And there's also, I think there's photos of a pool in Batesville that looks strange, so we need to make sure we don't do that.
They seem to think it's successful, but a lot of times something that looks successful to the public is not anywhere near as successful on paper. You need to find out from your city.
Okay, well, I wanted to point that out though, because you're the coordinator of the NEAT party, and you're sitting here saying it's not like unreasonable. So I'm just saying, like, why?
And you look at the projects; they're not bad projects, but it's like anything else that you do. Where is the money for it? Yeah. And how are you going to justify spending it? I'd like to have lots of things that I don't have the money for.
What has been remarkable to me is to see the Team Jonesboro come together, and they just have this. It's like a Christmas list almost.
Exactly. And they're very cheerful about it, and it sounds wonderful. It sounds so
great,
good.
But I really think if they had to just, I think it just comes across as elitist, and I don't think it's resonating very well with the rest of the community that is.
I've heard a lot of negativity about it from the rest of the community, and we're not talking about just the people who are elderly on fixed income. There are a lot of people who do not like how it looks.
Yeah, exactly. They should have picked one They should have.
Exactly.
They should have
maybe 3 projects.
Yeah.
Let's do something about this.
And you should have researched them to
exactly.
death. And I mean, like, let's get an estimate. Let's get another estimate. And let's talk about maintenance. Let's talk about staffing. Let's release all of that. How would we staff it? You know, pay for the lifeguards. You
Yes.
gotta, you know.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the founding fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. 870-275-9799. Telephone number. You found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality, where we are building a liberty machine. We can't do the show without you. I want to remind you, please go to all of our digital platforms and get hooked up that way. The best way, I believe, to do it is through the YouTube channel for now. And you want to subscribe and click the bell to receive notifications. So that if you miss an interview, or you miss, I don't know, maybe you miss a good rant, because sometimes we put those into little smaller videos. And then if you really want to help us build the Liberty Machine, after you subscribe, you get those notifications when we're live. You get those notifications when we have the smaller videos, the daily interviews. Share those with your friends. If they're not listening, if they're not able to listen, if they don't know, so wait, hey, did you hear about this? Listen to this interview. And then that gets them in this mindset and, allows them to get the news of the day, including news about Arkansas. And that's why we're interviewing right now. State Representative Josh Miller is back with us. Josh, how are you this morning?
Hey, good morning, Paul. I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing good. I wanted to have you on. I just wanted to offer you congratulations for your very successful legislative season in terms of the Calvin Coolidge Awards, which were this past Friday. You were honored, and you received quite a large number of awards, sir.
Well, I appreciate that, and the recognition is appreciated, but probably not warranted. I'm just a guy from Cleveland County that believes in common sense, and I told the folks in my district when I first ran that I wouldn't try to invest their money any way differently than I would invest money in my own business. So anyhow, I'm glad it works out where the Conduit Awards can recognize that, because I don't know that we're on a whole lot of other award watch lists, but I don't really care.
That's fantastic. Yeah. So I want to kind of go over the list here with you. So first of all, you were 2019 Conduit for Commerce Calvin Coolidge Arkansas Hero, and this just was because of your very, very high score based on the Conduit for Commerce scorecard. You did very, very, very well. In the top 10, and so that's the first thing. Now, I think from our past.
Now, this scorecard is what you get when you vote for good bills and you vote against dumb bills, right?
That's correct, and I like your.
Okay, I just thought we ought to break that down, so people don't think it's really overly complicated.
It's really not, and on the dumb bills, there's kind of something that we have called the economic freedom filter. Does it grow government? Does it increase dependency on government? Does it spend money we don't have? I think we've added one about ethics and transparency. But on those, if it's going to do any of those things, you can pretty much just duct tape the no button down on your desk, right?
Right. Well, I have said that before, that in some sessions I feel like my district could be just as well represented by a piece of gray duct tape on the no button at my voting machine, as opposed to actually having me there. Because, it's just been one dumb bill after another. But anyway, we had a few things that were good that we could vote for. Of course, I don't know how many of them actually passed, but anyway, I appreciate Conduit and your show and you and everybody for recognizing the ones who just tried to stay true to what we believe, and what about most of us said we were gonna, the principles we were gonna act on when we ran, and unfortunately a few Republicans hadn't stayed true to that.
So then we got another bill. You got another one because you've received this award every year you've been in office, and so there were a few others who got that as well. But that right there, I think, is a big deal because it shows that you guys have longevity. Because there are a lot of people. I mean, if we're honest, there's a lot of people who have good scores maybe for a year or so, and then when I say good scores, they're voting the way a conservative would vote, the way many people campaign, and so you've been awarded each year you've been served. So that's you, Representative Payton, Hodges, McCollum, Penzo, and Sullivan. So you're in a good group of guys there. Then we're talking with State Representative Josh Miller. Then we have the 2019 Calvin Coolidge Freedom Bill Award, and this had to do with your idea to move us from this Medicaid expansion model where we give Blue Cross Blue Shield all of our money and guarantee them a profit to a fee-for-service. And this almost passed out of committee, but it failed. But it was a great idea, and I think it's gaining traction in the interim, sir.
Well, I hope so. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, to me, Paul, you got to admit, this is hilarious. I just got an award this is how bad we are in Arkansas. I just got an award from the most conservative group out here for running a straight-up Obamacare bill that every Democrat on the House Public Health Committee voted against. And so, I mean, how jacked up is this? Literally, that bill was exactly what Obamacare prescribed. Arkansas thought we'd get innovative and be visionaries and all this other stuff and run out here and do the private option model, and now we've since realized that we're, screwing ourselves and the taxpayers, just and making insurance companies filthy rich.
I mean, think
off this deal.
The way you say that, Josh. I mean, you're right. It kind of hurts to hear you say that. It's kind of like twisting the knife a little bit, and the knife's already in there because conservatives lost that argument on the growth of government. But what we're effectively saying now is, in hindsight, when Republicans took a stab at growing government, they do it way more expensively than the Democrats.
Exactly. I mean, there is a reason that Arkansas is the only state in the United States of America who has expanded Medicaid by using this private option model, because it's stupid. And thankfully the other states have realized that, and they don't do it now. Anyway, I don't know. It really does. It just sucks that we're in the shape that we're in. But like you said, I'm willing to throw up the white flag and say, hey, you know what? I'm not even talking about whether or not we should have expanded Medicaid in the first place. It's here. Let's just figure out how to do it the most affordable and efficient way possible. Mm-hmm. And guaranteeing insurance companies a 20% profit margin on every dollar that they receive is ridiculous.
And that's in the bill, right? That was in the legislation that got us where we are. And I understand maybe initially there was some pushback, maybe, sticking your fingers in your ears like, I don't hear you. But now I hear people are conceding, yes, we're guaranteeing them 20% profit. But now they're coming back and saying, but you don't understand, if we get rid of this now, it's going to cost us millions and millions of dollars. And actually the math doesn't add up to that at all if you actually sit down and put a pencil to it.
No, well, I mean, if you do real bright things like get a pen and a piece of paper or use a calculator, there's no way that you can figure out, oh, this is going to cost us money to get rid of it. That is absolute. What that is somebody who is in love with one of these two insurance companies telling you that because they don't want to be responsible for taking the gravy train away from their friends. And that's pure and simple what it is. And people to say, oh, well, we can't get rid of this because we would lose our ability to have work requirements. I just, that's ridiculous also. We can go back. Obviously, the federal government will grant waivers for about anything. And so we can go back, get other waivers, get waivers, get the work requirement waiver to go along with the traditional Medicaid expansion plan. The Trump administration will have no problem with that. Anyway, it's just the arguments against it have been ridiculous. I think the facts speak for themselves, but as always, the wheels of government turn ever so slowly when they're trying to turn in the right direction. Now we can go the wrong direction real quick, but
yeah, that's true.
But anyway, hopefully, I mean, Paul, we're talking about $400 million a year total of taxpayer money that's going to these two insurance companies for profit.
Guaranteed, right? It's guaranteed in the bill.
Yes, sir. Well, I mean, it says in the bill that they must spend 80% on medical loss. Do you think they're actually going to spend more than that just because they're gracious?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No. Anyway, it's the right thing to do. I think it's the common sense approach. And let's quit fighting about whether or not we should have done it. And now let's just do it. I mean, it's here, and it sucks. And I hate to say I lost, but I lost. So let's figure out what we got to do to do it the most efficient way.
Well, and I think I really think it's gonna gain traction. The more, especially the longer these. I don't think it's sustainable with work requirements, and there may be a judge that overrules this other judge and says no, you can do them. I mean, that's probably likely going to happen, but it just I don't think it's I think it's just like you said, it's a waste of money. It's a giveaway to these quote private insurance companies, and it's very dangerous where you don't know where the government ends and the Blue Cross Blue Shield company begins. And it's just I think it's one of the biggest scams in Arkansas history. I really do. I think it's eventually going to be realized and recognized as that. It's just only a matter of time. And they're one of the.
How many? Sorry to interrupt, but how many other private businesses in the state do you know of that sign up for government contracts that are guaranteed a 20% or better profit margin on day one?
I can't think of any.
Exactly. I mean, it's a joke.
Well, and I think one of the reasons you have the Democrats in this state, who didn't go along with a fee for service, which would have been cheaper, is the fact that you've got Blue Cross Blue Shield now with all of this taxpayer money and this 20% profit. And they're going to take portions of that, and they're going to use it to pay lobbyists. They're going to use it to fund political action committees that they can donate to, that are there to keep their special candidates in office. I mean, they're tithing some of that money to be nice to the politicians, and so there's people down there. There's every incentive to just not rock the boat at all when it comes to this because they have a taxpayer-funded profit stream. And they don't want to lose it, and that's understandable. But when you look at the fact that we're having to raise taxes on the people of Arkansas right now, $70 million, $70+ million for fiscal year 2020, more coming from the people going to the government. You know, when we have these Republican supermajorities who, passed a good income tax cut, but when you put it all together, it's a net tax increase. And I think the reason is because of Blue Cross Blue Shield. I mean, you know, they're the ones that are you know, and Obamacare. This whole system is the reason why they had to go back to the people, because we can't afford to pay our share.
Well, we don't need to forget our dear friends over at Centene as well.
And that's true. That's true. We don't want to leave them out.
We're in there with, well, let's give them due props. But no, you're absolutely right. I mean, you talk about, you know, Arkansas has a history of running on a pretty tight budget, as it has. I mean, you know, comparatively speaking to other states, we've run on a pretty tight budget, you know, a lot of years. And so when you're talking about 40, 50 million dollars or more out of state revenue, you're talking about a big chunk of money. And that's a minimum on what the guaranteed savings would be out of state revenue. And it would probably wind up being quite a bit more than that if we were able to get rid of those insurance companies in that program. But you're 100% correct. Every time we need something, whether it's going to be, you know, for higher ed or for, you know, roads or whatever, I mean, the automatic knee-jerk reaction is, well, let's go to the taxpayers and get more money. And it's never, let's look and see what we can do that makes the most sense to where we can, you know, carve a little here, move some from over here, and let's stay out of the taxpayer's pocket, or not get in it any more than we already are, and let's live with what we got, and cut where we need to cut. But like I said, I mean, for whatever reason, we've got a bunch of folks that have been elected that evidently are also really chummy with Centene and Blue Cross.
Yep.
And they don't want to see the gravy train go away. And
correct me if I'm wrong, but is Blue Cross Blue Shield nonprofit?
Oh, I believe they would say they are.
Yeah. All right. So that 20% is not taxed. I just want to bring that point up too. At 20%.
Oh, Paul.
I'm just I'm sorry. I'm just saying it's not a taxable thing.
Of all the rude things to point out.
I mean, think about what a scam that is. It's a taxpayer funded, guaranteed 20% profit on this whole deal. We're paying $600 a month on people. They get paid that $600, Blue Cross, whether or not they go to the doctor or not, and then they can, you know, keep 20% for sure, and then and then they don't have to pay taxes on it. I mean, that's just insane. We're talking with State Representative Josh Miller. We're running out of time, but I want to take as much time as we have to talk about this last award that you received on Friday at the Calvin Coolidge dinner. Calvin Coolidge, the Linda Collins Legislator of the Year Promises Kept Award. You and your colleague John Payton received this award, sir. What does that mean to you?
Paul, that's a real honor to even be mentioned, you know, to be in the running for something like that. You know, just with everything that's happened with our friend and former colleague, you know, Miss Linda, and losing her has left a, you know, kind of a void with several of us. And you know, it's been a very tough pill to swallow. And I know, like, one of the things that I most admired about her was just her tenacity to, you know, she would dig in and stay dug in. And you didn't have to worry about her. You didn't have to worry, hey, are they gonna get to Linda? Are they gonna buy her off? Is she gonna change her mind? Is she gonna change her position on this issue? Is she gonna change her vote? You never had to worry about that. And there are probably less than 20 people in the entire legislature that that you don't have to worry about that right now. And so, you know, she was a rare jewel, and to receive an award just for, to me, just for doing the right thing. I don't think I've done anything spectacular. I haven't razzled or dazzled anybody. I mean, heck, I rarely pass bills. You know, I've just tried to do what I said I was going to do, and it's not that complicated. And to be honored with this award, and you know, and especially with her name on it now, is truly special. It's something that I'm gonna, you know, just be. It's gonna be a lifelong honor. That's what I'm trying to say. I don't really have the words because I don't want to get choked up. But,
I understand. I understand.
Anyway, it's man, it really is. That's probably the biggest honor in my political career by far.
State Representative Josh Miller from District 66. We appreciate your time this morning, sir. Always great to talk to you, Josh.
Hey, appreciate you, Paul.
All righty.
Take care.
Yes, sir. Folks, we got to take a break. Back in just a moment.
Funding anything that you see. An aquatic center might be fun, but I think Paragould needs to be called and see how that's working out for them.
Yeah, and there's also, I think there's photos of a pool in Batesville that looks strange, so we need to make sure we don't do that.
They seem to think it's successful, but a lot of times something that looks successful to the public is not anywhere near as successful on paper.
Oh,
so
right,
that's,
right,
you know,
right.
you need to find out from your
Okay,
city.
well, I wanted to point that out though, because you're the coordinator of the NEAT party, and you're sitting here saying it's not like unreasonable. So I'm
Right.
just saying, like, why?
And you look at the projects; they're not bad projects, but it's like anything else that you do. Where is the money for it?
Yeah.
And you know, how are you going to justify spending it? You know, I'd like to have lots of things.
Determined to drain the swamp in Little Rock, it's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
$870-275-9799, telephone number if you want to contribute to the program. That's always good. You can call or text that number. So we've got left on the program your meme of the day. We also are going to get into this audio, this C-SPAN audio from Senators Bozeman and Cotton and Lee Radowski. Okay.
Arkansas, Senator Bozeman.
Oh, well, there's the audio. I heard the audio. That C-SPAN video is weird, though. I really wish C-SPAN do a little bit better with their video plugins or whatever they got. So we'll talk about that. It's interesting because Radowski has said he's this nominee for the Eastern District Court. President Trump nominated him. And in the Gazette this morning, they reported, and you'll see in this video, that he was asked about some statements he signed on to as an attorney. He's a former Solicitor General of Arkansas, worked for Walmart as well, worked in the AG's office, and he said that he wouldn't, if he had to do it over again, that he would not sign on to amicus briefs stating that gay marriage should be a right in the Constitution. Now, the Supreme Court went ahead and sided with that 14th Amendment argument. He says if he had to do it over again, he wouldn't have signed it because their argument isn't actually legally sound. This made the Democrats on the committee unhappy. Senator Hirono specifically. So we'll bring you that audio in the next half hour, again, as well as your meme of the day. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back in a moment.
I don't have the money for.
What has been remarkable to me is to see the team Jonesboro come together, and they just have this. It's like a Christmas list almost.
Exactly.
And
they're very cheerful about it, and it sounds wonderful.
It sounds
so
great,
good.
but I really think if they had to just, I think it just comes across as elitist, and I don't think it's resonating very well with the rest of the community that is.
I've heard a lot of negativity about it from the rest of the community, and we're not talking about just the people who are elderly on fixed income. There are a lot of people who do not like how it looks.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they should have picked one. They should have.
Exactly.
They should have
maybe 3 projects.
Yeah.
Let's do something about this.
And you should have researched them to
exactly.
death. And I mean, like, let's get an estimate. Let's get another estimate. And let's talk about maintenance. Let's talk about staffing.
Yes.
Let's release all of that. How would we staff it? Pay for the lifeguards.
Exactly.
All of that stuff. But nothing. And it's like then somebody be like, okay, all right, we know where the money's we know where it's gonna be spent. We know how much money's gonna be raised for the most part.
Exactly. It boils down to are you for it or against it?
Yes.
And here you might think the projects are great, but my stars, you don't have any kind of.
We don't even know if they're gonna be done because it sets up some committee and then they decide. I'm sure after they fill the budget hole, over 12 years, which projects get. So you're just giving some committee, carte blanche.
And now they don't spend the money. We know that it filters through the integrity team or integrity panel, whatever they call it.
Right.
It filters through them, and then they send the projects to the city council.
Right.
But a lot of these projects have already been mentioned as desirable by the city council, so why would they turn those down?
Mm-hmm. No. I mean.
Exactly.
I know that's the process, but come on, it's basically a
I just want to get that bit about, the city council will still have.
Yeah, well, you need to say that. We want to be.
Plus the fact that it's already been in a lot of the city council suggestions and things like that, and some of their plans. We've got a plan that goes back to 2013 that suggests some of these things.
Well, and maybe there will be corporate sponsorships. I mean, maybe that actually will happen. I'm sure we'll know.
That would be nice to know going in.
Right.
Rather than having to show up
if
a
it
ballot.
passes, then I'll do. Then
exactly.
We'll,
that's not a good solution.
Well, Iris, we'll have you on again, obviously, and to talk more about this.
Thank you.
So I appreciate it.
One more thing.
Yes.
We have members of Team Jonesboro that have agreed to show up at our Tea Party meeting on August 5th, this coming Monday.
That's great news.
They, I invited them because I say, we need information.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have a lot of information that we want. And so I asked them if they would be willing to show up, and they agreed they would send a couple of representatives to our Tea Party meeting so that we could discuss things.
That's good. And, I know you guys are always civil, and
always.
That'll be good. I mean, and that's,
Bringing you your daily dose of truth. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show. Thanks so much for being with us. Thanks for getting up with us. Some of you are just now getting up. Some of you are just having that first sip of coffee. I want to thank you for doing that with us here at Conduit News this morning, because it means a lot to us. We, throughout, the broadcasting, we try as best we can to, not only bring you the news of the day, but also try to highlight small businesses and small business owners when we can. And it recently came to my attention that there is this great chocolate company in Bentonville called Markham and Fitz Chocolate. And Joe in the other room right now, he's like, chocolate. He says, I need some samples, is what Joe says. Okay. Anyway, we have Preston Stewart on the line. who is the owner of Markham and Fitz Chocolate. Preston, welcome to the program. How are you this morning?
Good morning. I'm doing good.
It's great to talk to you, sir, and have you on. Matter of fact, what's your official title on the website? I was just looking at it. It's the best title I think ever.
It is co-founder and chief chocolate officer.
The chief chocolate officer from Markham and Fitz Chocolate out of Bentonville. So, Preston, let me just, how did you get started in this business?
It's kind of a long story. We started making chocolate 6-ish years ago. A friend of mine who I lived with after college started a nonprofit that does economic development in war-torn countries. And one of the projects that they initiated was in Uganda, and they were meeting community members to maybe receive a flock of chickens as a donation to help kind of spur on some economic development and improve their nutrition in this region. And they met a cocoa farmer named Cosmos, and the guy had some cocoa beans left over from his harvest, and my friend and another guy on the trip saw the cocoa beans in his house and was like, hey, maybe this is an economic development opportunity. And so they bought his cocoa beans and kind of brought them back in a suitcase and tried to figure out how to make chocolate at home. You can buy small-scale equipment to do that. He let me try some of it, and I was like, wow, this is pretty good. I've kind of always been a foodie, and I studied biochemistry and Spanish in college, but food science is really a passion of mine, and so I was interested in why this chocolate was so much better than anything I'd had before. So I was like, hey, if you ever need a hand, let me know. And so kind of started helping them make chocolate, learned how to do it. We gave it to friends. They loved it. And then they're like, hey, maybe this is a business. And so we started our business back in 2014.
Wow. And so you guys continue that process, right? You're going, what countries are you getting? They're not chocolate beans. They're what are they? Where are you
cocoa
getting
beans?
Cocoa beans. So what countries are you harvesting these from, or sourcing these from?
We currently source from the Dominican Republic, Haiti, Nicaragua, Bolivia, and Colombia. So we work with some really great supply chain partners in those countries and have really drastically improved the quality of our chocolate over the years, and have really made our space in Bentonville a chocolate experience.
I mean, I saw the storefront. I mean, the website's great. We're showing the website right now to our online audience. Are there differences? I'm just curious between a Dominican bean and one from Colombia.
Oh yeah, just like coffee and wine, like the terroir, they say, where it's grown, soil, rainfall, sunlight, all that has a big impact on the final flavor, as well as some of the post-harvesting practices like fermentation and drying. But yeah, there's some for instance, Madagascar cocoa beans are known to have kind of a bright cherry note. Ecuador's typically kind of earthy and sometimes nutty. So yeah, there's some distinct flavor profiles from certain countries, but ultimately it's the chocolate maker's responsibility to kind of draw out those highlights of flavors and accentuate them through our roasting and refining processes.
That's great. So we're talking with Preston Stewart. He is the co-founder and chief chocolate officer of Markham and Fitz Chocolate. You can check it out, markhamandfitz.com. Now, as I was kind of saying in the intro, we like to highlight small business whenever we get the chance to, because we think they're the backbone. We think a lot of small businesses are just really underappreciated because, if it's not for you guys out there, taking risks, to start the business in the first place, the rest of us wouldn't be able to enjoy, your great chocolate or a lot of other things,
Right.
So can you tell us, as the business side of things, are there any concerns, or are there any hardships? A lot of people sometimes they have this conception that if you own your business, it's somehow easy. It's not easy, is it?
No. Yeah, the first almost 3 years, my business partner and I, we didn't get paid. We had one employee and we paid her. But so yeah, the first couple of years in business was a struggle. One, because we didn't have much of a plan per se, but also we started with our own personal capital. We just kind of bootstrapped it. We were working other jobs full time, and so it was kind of a nights and weekends thing. And so there was just a lot of, hard work and grind to kind of hone our skills, learn sales, learn HR type things, and eventually we kind of refined our business model and into what it is now, where we have a storefront and we make lots of desserts. So it just took a little bit of trial and error and focus to do that. If you think of it in terms of a business sense, like it's a pretty labor intensive process to make chocolate because we don't have a lot of automated equipment, and so labor is a big portion of our expenses. We have a really great team that we work with, and both in chocolate making, and we've got a great pastry chef, and we also have a bar, so we have a bar manager and some baristas / bartenders. So we've got a sizable crew for the small storefront that we have.
That's great. So you've seen it grow, your story. I think there's probably a lot of business owners out there that are like, yep, that's exactly me. First couple of years it was really, really hard, a lot of nights, a lot of weekends. So like right now, Preston, there's somebody listening to the show right now, and they have a full-time job working for somebody else, but they've got an idea. What do you have any advice for them? Like if they're driving right now, like what would be like? They're thinking about going out on their own. They're thinking about jumping. What advice do you have for them?
I would say seek counsel with other entrepreneurs, like friends that are small business owners of their own. One thing that we did that was really helpful, we met with the Startup Junkie people. They're in Fayetteville. They help small businesses kind of take the next step. And so they can either help you flesh out your concept into something legitimate, or take your fledgling business and give you some connections and plans and those kinds of things to help you grow. It's a free service, so I would definitely recommend them. I think there's another one in Central Arkansas called Conductor. So,
yeah, I think that's great advice. And there are services like that.
The Small Business Administration, SBA. Those guys have some assistance as well.
So, okay, that's fantastic. Well, first of all, Preston, it's been great to meet you. Again, it's Markham and Fitz Chocolate. Last question, okay? One product, we got people who have seen the website. They can go to the website. They can order online. If you could make them try or give them something, like what's the one thing they should buy that you guys make?
If you're coming into the chocolate shop, our best-selling item is our brown sugar bourbon chocolate chip cookie.
Wow, that sounds amazing. Okay.
This Saturday is National Chocolate Chip Cookie Day, so we're making many in preparation for that. If you want to get some chocolate, as if you're not in the area and you want it shipped to you, to me, our 70% dark chocolate from the Dominican Republic is a really great pure chocolate. If you're a little bit more of a sweets fan, Sea Salt and Almonds are best-selling chocolate bar. So there's a couple chocolate bar recommendations.
So Sea Salt and Almonds, okay, and I love dark chocolate. Like, it's weird the older I get, and I think that's like a lot of people. The dark chocolate is
your palate matures.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, okay. I'm gonna get one. Preston Stewart, we appreciate it, sir. Best of luck to you. I hope you continue to succeed in this great business in Bentonville, Arkansas, and I hope people buy from all across the world. And it's been great talking to you, sir. Thanks so much for spending time with us.
Thanks for having me on.
All righty. Preston Stewart, everybody. Markham and Fitz Chocolate. The website, markhamandfitz.com. Let's transition here now, because I've been telling you about this story. It was on the front page of the Gazette. Well, on the front page of their website, not like the main story. Go ahead and show this one. Arkansan up for seat on U.S. court queried. Ex-Solicitor General admits regrets on joining brief supporting gay marriage. Okay, let's go to the soundbite, because this really kind of explains it instead of having to read it. First off, he had Senator Bozeman, who was in front of the Judiciary Committee. Now, this is the Senate Judiciary Committee. The chairman is Lindsey Graham, right? Most Americans, whether you're on the left or right, everybody knows who Lindsey Graham is at this point. You have it queued up right where it's supposed to be? All right, so here it is. Take a listen to this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Here's Senator
Ranking Member
Bozeman.
Feinstein for allowing me to appear today to introduce Lee Radofsky, the President's nominee to serve as the U.S. District Judge for the Eastern District of Arkansas. Lee has a long history of public service. He served the great state of Arkansas as its first Solicitor General. He clerked for the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit, the Supreme Judicial Court of Massachusetts, the Office of Counsel to the Governor of Massachusetts, and the Office of Counsel to the President of the United States during the George W. Bush administration. In recent years, he was an adjunct professor at George Mason University School of Law, teaching budding lawyers about environmental and administrative law. A graduate of Cornell and Harvard, Lee also spent years handling complex commercial and constitutional cases in private practice. In his current role, he's the Senior Director for Global Anti-Corruption Compliance at Walmart. Simply put, Lee has extensive legal experience in law firms, in the courtroom, and in the judge's chamber. He's certainly very well qualified.
Okay, stop.
In closing, I very much...
This is the president's pick, Lee Radofsky. There's not an... I'm sorry. I want to put an L in there, Radofsky. Radofsky. I don't know why I'm having so much trouble with this. This is the U.S. District Court nominee for the Eastern District of Arkansas. So Senator Bozeman introduced him. He also was followed by remarks by Senator Cotton, who also introduced him, did a fine job there. In the interest of time, we're going to skip ahead to this next cut, which is an interaction between the chairman, Lindsey Graham, asking questions about, hey, why did you sign on to these briefs concerning gay marriage? Listen.
Thank you. Mr. Radofsky, you're the Solicitor General for Arkansas, is that correct?
Chairman Graham, yes.
And you filed an amicus brief in the same-sex marriage cases before the Supreme Court, and I think you had some writings as a student. Could you tell us about your role as Solicitor General, these briefs, and Mr. Huffaker, we'll end with you. Just tell us what makes you ready to be a judge.
There were a few nominees,
Chairman Graham, my role as Solicitor General and my role prior to that as a private litigator in the law firm of Kirkland and Ellis, I think has given me the quite varied litigation skills and litigation experience to do a very good job as a judge. Obviously, as the Solicitor General, I was working on behalf of the people of Arkansas, and I litigated cases that my boss, the Attorney General, directed me to. I've litigated criminal matters, I've litigated civil matters, I've litigated at all levels of the Arkansas state court system. I've litigated at all levels of the federal court system. In terms of the two briefs you're talking about, which I believe you're talking about the Obergefell and the Hollingsworth brief, those were not when I was Solicitor General. I did not sign those as a lawyer. Those were signed in my personal capacity. When I signed those briefs, Senator, when I joined those amicus briefs, I was not an expert in 14th Amendment jurisprudence. Since then, as Solicitor General, I've become much more familiar with that area of law. And I have to say, if I had it to do over again as a legal matter, I would not have signed those briefs.
Senator, this September will be my 20th year practicing law.
All right, go to the next cut. So the briefs he's talking about. You mentioned Obergefell. That was the decision that the Supreme Court used. Or the Supreme Court said, hey, you have a constitutional right to marriage. I mean, marriage. Okay, remember? It's when Obama put the rainbow on the White House, right? We're saying that there's a constitutional right to marriage, that it's in the Constitution, marriage. Okay? Which, I mean, I don't care if personally, I mean, I've said this many times before, live and let live, but I mean, if we're talking about what the law, the government has no business regulating anyone's marriage. I'm married to my wife because it's a religious ceremony, okay? I took vows to her before God and the community. like around us. That's what it was. That's what anyway. So that's my opinion on that. But anyway, they say no, you got to have the only reason they did is this phony perception that people have to have their lifestyles affirmed by government. It's a very anti-freedom thing. But it's promoted as the opposite. It's promoted as well that we got to be free, so the government has to validate our lifestyle, and it's anyway, it's very frustrating. So, but I want you to hear what the Democrat says on this. So we got cut 3 ready. This is Senator Hirono. Is she from Hawaii? Is that where she's from? She's the Democrat on the Judiciary Committee. She did not like the fact that he said if he had to do it over again, he would actually side against the ultimate decision by the Supreme Court, which affirmed this. Go ahead.
Mr. Rudofsky, I just wanted to be sure I understood what you said to Senator Graham just now about the Supreme Court amicus briefs you signed on to in 2013 and 2015. The briefs argued for giving civil marriage rights to same-sex couples. Did you just tell Senator Graham that you regret signing them and that you would not do so today?
So, Senator, let me first say obviously, that if I'm so lucky to be confirmed as a district court nominee, I will, of course, fully and faithfully follow the Supreme Court precedent.
Yes, but what I'm ascertaining is whether you actually said this to Senator Graham now, that you regret signing on to these 2 amicus briefs?
Yes.
So obviously, I will fully and faithfully follow Obergefell as a district court nominee, but to answer your question, yes, what I explained was when I joined these amicus briefs, I was not an expert in 14th Amendment jurisprudence. Since that time, I've become much more familiar with this area of law as Solicitor General, and if I had it to do over again, as a legal matter, I wouldn't join the arguments in those briefs.
There will be those who would disagree that the 14th Amendment should be so narrowly construed. For you, once again, in your cert petition in Beck v. Edwards, you argued that our...
This is, did you hear what she did there? She was well, yeah, of course there are those who would argue. He's just making a statement. Of course there are those that argue that the 14th Amendment is not that narrow. That's the Supreme Court held that it's not that narrow. He's just saying, hey, and of course it's worth, it made the front page here of the Gazette, or it made the Gazette. Frank Lockwood, again, ex-Solicitor General, admits regrets on joining briefs supporting gay marriage. And, there you have it. This is Donald Trump's nominee for the Eastern District Court. And I think, it's good to see this process play out. It really, truly is. Now, we are long overdue for a break. So we're going to take that break. We're going to come right back, and we're going to hit you with the meme of the day. Don't go anywhere.
Boils down to, are you for it or against it?
Yes.
And here, you might think the projects are great, but my stars, you don't have any kind of...
We don't even know if they're going to be done.
Exactly.
Because it sets up some committee, and then they decide, I'm sure after they fill the budget hole, over 12 years, which projects get... So you're just giving some committee,
carte blanche.
Yeah.
And now they don't spend the money. We know that it filters through the integrity team or integrity panel, whatever they call it.
Right.
It filters through them, and then they send the projects to the city council.
Right.
But a lot of these projects have already been mentioned as desirable by the city council, so why would they turn those down?
Mm-hmm. No.
Exactly.
I know that's the process, but come on, it's basically
I just wanted to get that bit about, the city council will still have.
Yeah, well, you need to say that. We want to be.
Plus the fact that it's already been in a lot of the city council suggestions and things like that, and some of their plans. We've got a plan that goes back to 2013 that suggests some of these things.
Well, and maybe there will be corporate sponsorships. Maybe that actually will happen. I'm sure we'll know.
That would be nice to know going in.
Right.
Rather than having to show up
if
for a ballot.
If it passes, then I'll do. Then
exactly. That's not a good solution.
Well, Iris, we'll have you on again, obviously, and to talk more about this.
Thank you.
So I appreciate it.
One more thing.
Yes.
We have members of Team Jonesboro that have agreed to show up at our Tea Party meeting on August 5th, this coming Monday.
That's great news.
They, I invited them because I say, we need information.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have a lot of information that we want. And so I asked them if they would be willing to show up, and they agreed they would send a couple of representatives to our Tea Party meeting so that we could discuss things.
That's good. And, I know you guys are always civil, and
always.
that'll be good. I mean, and that speaks to their character, that they're willing to engage with
think
people
so,
that they
too.
know
Exactly.
are, hostile.
That are
toward
primarily
them. Yeah.
opposed to not opposed to the project, concerned about the process.
Yeah, concerned about the taxpayer money, really. Exactly. Okay. Ira Stevens, everybody. Oh, by the way, before you go, let me ask you. So you were a guest at the Calvin Coolidge Awards.
I was.
So tell us.
It was great. I tell you what, I enjoyed being around those. Got to visit with a bunch of legislators, and they were conservative, so you're sharing your values and things, and it was just a lot of fun. And I cannot think of his name. I tried all the way up here to think the guy that did the pseudo
the magic, Mr. Joey Williams.
I thought it was Joe Williams, but anyway, he was so cute. It was so funny, and it was just, I very much enjoyed it.
Can you believe he pulled a $100 bill out of a lemon?
Yeah, right. Yes.
But I mean, it was soaking wet.
Yeah.
How did he get that $100 bill inside a lemon?
Well, magicians never tell their secrets,
I know,
so I didn't even bother to ask.
I know.
But it was cute.
Well, I mean, I did. He won't tell me.
The food was wonderful. The food was absolutely gourmet.
Yeah.
So it was a great night, and it was worth going 2 hours down there and 2 hours back.
Good. Well, I'm glad.
So it was a lot of fun.
Well, thanks for coming, Iris.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
All right, folks, we're going to take a break. We'll be back here in just a moment.
It boils down to, are you for it or against it?
Yes.
And here, you might think the projects are great, but my stars, you don't have any kind of...
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is building a liberty machine. Find out more at conduitnews.com.
Here we go. All right, welcome back to the show. I had 3 good interviews today. We had Chris Ann Hall about the media and politicians enslaving people to hate. Very, very good. That'll be up at Conduit News. Then we talked to Josh Miller. Very good interview, as always. And then we had a great little small business spotlight there with Preston Stewart from Markham and Fitz Chocolate.
Now I really want some chocolate.
Dude, I had no idea. It's like, you're not supposed to eat chocolate for breakfast, but I could eat some chocolate for breakfast.
Actually, I'm pretty sure I read an article not that long ago that said if you're going to eat chocolate, the best time to do it is sometime in the early hours of the day, because it gives your body all day to process it and to burn it, and that's what it's starting out with, is burning that.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, if you're going to eat that amount. I also heard, though, special forces and stuff that have to sleep under the stars and at night, and they got to get some sleep, that they eat chocolate because it actually keeps you warm while you sleep. So
now when you read this meme of the day, Paul, you have to do it in your Palpatine voice.
Okay. My Palpatine voice. Okay. Execute Order 66. All right, here your meme of the day. It's courtesy of Conservative Memes. It's a picture of Vladimir Putin whispering in Donald Trump's ear. Listen to my orders, evil puppet. I want you to fix the U.S. economy, crush ISIS, and fight human trafficking. Got it? We'll post this up at our Twitter feed, Conduit News, at Conduit News, as well as Facebook, facebook.com/Conduit News. Folks, thank you so much for listening. What is today, Thursday? So tomorrow is Johnny Cash Friday for the terrestrial radio audience. And if you want to hear a specific song, those of you that are driving and stuff, let me know. I'll plug it in. You just got to text us, 870-275-9799. And this broadcast available at conduitnews.com, SoundCloud, iTunes, as well as please go to YouTube. The best way you can help us is to go to YouTube, Conduit News, subscribe, click the little bell to receive notifications. Arkansas, have a great day. Be safe.